Hello everyone, I'm Craig Ripley and welcome to another episode of Living Off the Slab. It is just before Thanksgiving here in New England, and most of us have put our bikes away for the winter, but we're already planning and eagerly anticipating spring for 2015. But while we can't ride, I thought that I would do something a little bit different over the course of the winter for 2014 and 2015. And that is, I would string together some videos and create kind of little webisodes. We'd be covering several different little topics during these episodes, and I kind of see where it goes, you know. Let me know if you like what we're doing here. Also, you can let me know if you don't like what we're doing here. That's just fine as well. Now, since I'm a Victory owner, and a lot of the things that I'm involved with my riding group and so forth, do involve Victory motorcycles, you're probably going to be seeing a lot of things that do pertain to Victory and probably Indian motorcycles, because those are things that I have access to. However, I will try to cover other things as well, because I just like motorcycling in general, and I will be covering as much of the things that I can get access to, and that, to be honest with you, that I find interesting. Okay, so here we go, our webisode 1 of Living Off the Slab. I hope you like it. So let's take a look at some of the things that are going on in the motorcycle world for this fall. Now, we just got through having the Intermot and the EICMA shows over in Europe. And those are the shows where the European and Japanese manufacturers release all the new products for the upcoming year. So for 2015, we've got a few things that I think are pretty cool. So the first bike that I really like is the new Ducati Scrambler for 2015. This bike is based on the 1960s era's Ducati Scramblers, but of course having an updated look, an updated feel, and all new technologies. This bike comes with an 803cc engine, should put out about 75 horsepower and 50 foot-pounds of torque. Now, considering that the bike's only going to weigh about 375 pounds, it should get you down the road pretty good. Now, this bike is going to come in 4 different versions, and it's going to retail for about $8,500 to just under $10,000. Now, another entire segment that I think is pretty exciting is the adventure touring segment. Right? And that is basically a bike that is designed to do mostly on-road stuff, but also will be able to get you off-road a little bit as well. So the first bike that I really like here, that I like to take a look at, is the BMW S1000 XR. Now, this is based on the BMW's 990cc inline-4 engine that will put out about 200 horsepower. For the 1000 XR, we're going to see that detuned a little bit, but it's still going to put out like 160 horsepower and about 84 foot-pounds of torque. So this bike looks to be primarily a road-based bike, but you can probably get off into a hard-packed dirt or a little bit of gravel as well. Not to be outdone, Ducati has redesigned the Multistrada for 2015, coming with an 1198cc Testoretta engine. Right, this again will put out about 160 horsepower, and Ducati says 136 foot-pounds of torque. So this is going to be one hell of a monster engine in this bike. Also upping the ante for 2015 is KTM. Now, they currently have one of the best adventure touring bikes out there, and then the 1190. But they've come out with 2 bikes that are each on the other side of the 1190. The first one being the 1290 Super Adventure, that has an engine based on the 1290 Super Duke, but again is a 200 horsepower engine that will be detuned again for this adventure touring market, putting out that 160 horsepower mark. Now, this bike also comes with a 7.9 gallon tank, and they say you can get over 300 miles on a tank of gas. So this bike will get you down the road really quickly and also get you a long way before you have to stop for gas. Now, the other bike from KTM is going to be the 1050 adventure bike. Now, this is just a little step down from the 1190, and a lot of people are a little confused on why they would bother even releasing this bike, because it weighs about the same as the 1190. It's probably going to be a little bit cheaper than the 1190, but still, why wouldn't you just step up to that you know, when you're going to get the same size bike basically with a little less power for the 1050. KTM has released the prices on the 1290. It's going to be going for $20,499, so it's going to be up there. It's going to be pricey. So expect that the Ducatis and the BMWs will also be priced in that kind of range. Now, also releasing some new bikes in the adventure touring category are Suzuki, who has the new 650 XT V-Strom, Kawasaki, who's got the newly redesigned Versys 650, and they're bringing the Versys 1000 to the United States for 2015. Also, Triumph has a redesigned Tiger 800 for this same segment. So as you can see, there's a lot of things going on in this adventure touring segment. Here in the United States, it's not really a big deal right now. We've got you know, some small segment of riders going this way, but it seems to be one of the fastest growing and most innovative of the motorcycle segments. And personally, it's something I would be interested in taking a look at more closely. Also in the news is a little trouble for Polaris Industries' new Slingshot trike that they're releasing. This vehicle is designed to be registered as a motorcycle, even though it has seats, it has a steering wheel, it has no seat belts, none of the safety equipment that you would normally find in a car. So they've been able to go out and, for the most part, get it registered in all 50 states as a motorcycle. Now, apparently Texas, though, is pulling the plug on this. They initially said, yes, we'll register it as a motorcycle, but now they're saying, no, they will not. Apparently the definition of a motorcycle in Texas involves a saddle and not seats and a steering wheel. So they are now disallowing it because it doesn't have the required safety features for a car. Hopefully Polaris will be able to work this out with the state of Texas so that they can sell the vehicle there. But for right now, nobody in Texas is going to get the delivery of their new Slingshots. Now, also for Polaris in the Victory realm, we've got a recall of a small number of bikes. About 122 bikes that were built in 2015 are going to be recalled because apparently the shift drum roller spring possibly wasn't installed properly on some of these bikes. So they're going to be brought in, they're going to be inspected and then repaired free of cost to, of course, the owners of the bikes. Good for Polaris for stepping up on this. And good that there's only a small number of bikes that is really affected here. Okay, so hands up everyone. How many of you out there were surprised when Indian released the Scout for 2015 with a water-cooled engine, right? I know I was. Right, being a Victory owner, it had been a rumor going around for some time that Victory was working on a new water-cooled powertrains for their bikes. So we were all expecting that we would see a new Vegas or a new Judge or maybe even a new Vision coming out with a new water-cooled power plant. Things were released online, spy photos were released online, and everybody was expecting to see that new Victory coming out in 2015. Well, surprise to all of us, that water-cooled engine and those spy photos were not of a new Victory, they were of the 2015 Indian Scout. Now I admit that when I first saw those spy photos online, I was kind of taken aback. I thought, this is a Victory? This doesn't look anything like a Victory. Where you would think that a Victory design would be going towards. This looked like a step back. Something more retro than I was expecting coming from anything that was produced by Victory Motorcycles. Well, lo and behold, that's because it wasn't a Victory. It was the Indian Scout. And things started making sense. Things started falling into place. Ah, now I see why we're going with the retro design. I can see in the layout of the bike, I can see the tank design and the frame design and so forth, kind of hearkening back to those older Scout models. Now things are falling into place. Now they make a lot more sense. So looking at the design of the new Scout, first thing that comes to mind is it's very clean, very simplistic. There's not a whole lot of frills here on this bike, which I think for the kind of rider that this is marketed to is a good thing. Right? They're looking at entry-level riders and they're looking at smaller riders. So you're not looking at something here that's going to be big and flashy. You want it small, you want it light, and that's exactly what they've achieved here with the new Scout. One of the big things that I liked about this new Scout is that you seem to be getting a lot for your money here. If you look at it, there's no plastic anywhere to be found on this bike. All of the controls, the fenders, the cast frame, everything is made out of some kind of metal, whether it's aluminum or steel. But you're getting a lot here. I said no plastic parts to be found anywhere on this bike. Now, if I was going to be really picky about the design of this bike, there are two things that I would hit on. One, the control use, the hand controls and the foot controls. They look a little bit cheap. I understand they're trying to keep the price down as low as they can, so they probably said cut corners a little bit on those. And I'm sure that there's going to be a ton of things that are going to be available aftermarket to put on a bike, so that's really not a big deal, but it is one of the things I would key in on, if I'm being picky. The second thing is kind of their cable management, and particularly if you look on the right side of the bike, right behind the engine, you can see the big black wiring harness that just kind of runs just in front of the frame there. Now, I've been told that the reason you can see that is because there just isn't enough room in that frame. They were trying to keep the bike low, they were trying to keep the bike narrow, so they had to run the wiring harness outside of the frame. Again, it's a picky thing, I know, but it is one of the things that stood out to me. Looking at the stats and the performance on this new engine, you've got a 69 cubic inch power plant, that's 1133 cc's, puts out a claimed 100 horsepower. Indian doesn't put any torque numbers on it, but the dyno numbers that I've seen suggest that to the rear wheel you're going to get about 86 horsepower and 63 foot-pounds of torque. And that's not too bad for a bike that weighs 558 pounds wet, that is with a full tank of gas. That's going to get you down the road pretty darn good. So price points for the new Scout are $10,999 for the black model, or if you want one of the colors, that is a matte black, a red, or the silver, you're looking at $11,299. Now, how does that compare to some of its competition? Well, if we consider that this is supposedly an entry-level bike, we'd be looking at things like the Sportster Low, which you can pick up for about $82.49. A Yamaha Bolt can be picked up for about $79.90. An HD 750 Street, say $74.99. And if you want to go into, say, some of the Kawasaki models, the Vulcan 900s, $84.99, or their new Vulcan S model can be picked up for $73.99. So you have to decide, I guess, is this Indian really an entry-level bike? Well, I guess that's up for debate. Okay, let's stop right there. I know that there's some of you out there that are yelling at me. They're saying, wait a minute, you chose bikes that are $2,000 less than the Scout, and their displacement is nowhere near what the Scout is. And you're right. I chose bikes that are at the 650cc mark all the way up to about the 950cc mark. But I did that for a reason. Because I think the bikes that I just showed are truly entry-level bikes. They're bikes you're going to buy, ride for a couple of years, gain some experience on the road, and then move up to a larger model or with more displacement and probably more weight. Now, I don't think the Scout is one of those kind of bikes, right? This is the reintroduction of a classic model. This is something that you're going to want to keep and hang on to probably for a lifetime if you buy one of these things, right? So this, in my mind, the Scout is not an entry-level bike. So, with that in mind, I think the competition for the Scout are something more like these two bikes. One would be the Harley-Davidson Sportster Custom 1200 that retails for $10,649, or the Yamaha Star Striker that retails for $11,690. One thing you'll notice is that the Scout looks and feels very small. It weighs about 558 pounds wet, that is with gasoline in it, and that gives you a really high power to weight ratio. So this thing just really screams. When you get on the throttle, it goes, and it just keeps going. It's really a blast to ride. I wasn't uncomfortable on the bike. The seat is quite comfortable. The riding position was quite comfortable for me. I've ridden bikes similar to this from Harley, and the riding position kind of did a number on my low back after being on it for about 20 minutes or so, whereas this didn't. I felt fine riding around on it and when I got off the bike. The one thing that I do have to say about the ride quality, though, is that the way that the frame is designed and the way that the shocks are laid out, there's not a whole lot of travel going on there in the shocks, and so when you hit bumps, you feel them. All right, this is, you know, not exactly a rigid bike, but it doesn't have the shock travel of a lot of the bikes out there that, you know, you would expect to absorb some of the shock, some of the bumps. So you'll notice that as we're going down some of these roads, they were a bit bumpy. And so some of the shaking and things that you see in my camera here is due to the fact that the Scout has a limited shock travel back there, and a lot of that, those bumps from the road are translated up. So this is not a bike that I would want to ride probably, you know, for long distances. This is not a bike that I would want to ride on rough roads for a long time either. However, it is still really blast to ride. You'll notice it takes corners great. I never drug any part on the bike while I was in there, and I went pretty hard into the corners, did some fast braking, and then shot out of the corners as much as I could on this demo ride, and it handled everything just fine. I mean, it was just a blast to ride. I keep repeating that over and over again, but that's the one thing that comes to mind when riding this bike, is it was just flat out fun. As I'm filming this, Indian is starting to come out with some accessories for the Scout as well. You can get a windshield on it, you can get a passenger seat on it as well, and you can get bags for this bike. So if you wanted to turn it into a touring machine, you could. Again, I think that there are other options out there that are probably better touring bikes, but if you really want the Scout and you wanted to tour on it, again, the accessories and things are going to be available for you. Okay, to sum up, the Scout is just an absolutely great little bike. It is fun to ride. It's comfortable enough for you. The riding position wasn't too extreme for me. I didn't have any problem with it. As some of these bikes, you get the handlebar positions out way forward and the feet slung out forward, and my back hurts immediately. But on this one, I didn't have any of that. The seat is very comfortable as well. And as I said, it's just fun. I keep saying that over and over again. It's fun. It's a blast to ride. As I said, it's not something I personally would like to have if I was going long distance on, but for short day trips, this is just a fun bike. Alright, so what I would suggest, as I suggest when you're buying any bike, is ride the Indian Scout, go out and ride some of its competitors, see which bike works best for you, and buy that one. Polaris dealerships around the country are starting to take delivery of the new Slingshot trike. Now, we probably won't be able to get one of these out on the road until the spring because the roads are starting to get a little bit nasty up here in New England. But here's a preview of what you have to look forward to. Hi guys, we're here at Mom's in Foxborough, Massachusetts, and we're checking out Polaris's new Slingshot.
Shut up and sit down.
right, let's go.
Clutch has to be in. Basically,
It's going, huh?
you know it's shaking when you nail it.
Shut up.
Really? Got all radio and everything on it.
Now, if you're interested in finding out more about the new Slingshot, drop by Mom's in Foxborough, Massachusetts, and one of the good salespeople there will be happy to help you out. Alright folks, thanks for watching, and if you like what you see, please hit that subscribe button, and you can follow us on Facebook, and you can visit the website at www.livingofftheslab.com.